professor for graduate studies in Graduate School of Commerce. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And he also a director of Waseda Institute for Advanced Study, which is basically, if you have heard about Institute for Advanced Study for Princeton's University, where Einstein worked, that's the same model that Waseda takes to found the research institution for Waseda University, basically produce a think tank, cutting-edge kind of work for university. Professor Miyajima, he's specialized in corporate governance and finance. Right? Please correct me if I'm wrong. And today his lecture is entitled Abenomics. You may wonder what is Abenomics. If you heard, listen to the news recently, you know, Abe-san, Abe-sensei, Abe-san, he's a premier of, he's a prime minister of Japan, and Abenomics and corporate governance reform in Japan with a question mark. So perhaps at the end of his lecture, we'll know what is the answer to that question mark is. So without further ado, please give a round of applause to Professor Miyajima, and we can listen to his lecture.
Thank you very much, and I'm quite honored to be here. And today I'm trying to talk with the relation with Abenomics and corporate governance reform in Japan. And Abenomics is, as she said, it's a name by Prime Minister in Japan, and it's quite rare. So a Prime Minister or President name is related to economic policy, such as Reaganomics or socialism, and Abenomics seem to be third or fourth in this context for the past 3 or 4 decades. And Abenomics is basically a macroeconomic policy, but as I will explain, part of Abenomics is the corporate governance reform. And I think you are not familiar with the word corporate governance, but I'll explain it, and then how to understand the relation of the corporate governance reform and Abenomics or economic growth in Japan. And thirdly, I try to explain some perspective of the corporate governance reform in Japan. So here is the agenda today's lecture, and I'm planning to have a 19 minutes presentation, and then we will discuss Abenomics or Japanese and Japan issue using the rest of 30 minutes. And at first I try to explain the background of the Japanese economy, and then I'll give you some notion about Abenomics, which comprises 3 arrows. And third arrow of Abenomics is a growth strategy, and main part of the growth strategy is the corporate governance reform. So that I try to explain the relationship or the linkage between Abenomics and growth strategy and corporate governance. And thirdly, fourthly, I moved to the current change of the corporate governance structure in Japan, which is related to your understanding of the Japanese management. And typical Japanese management style has been right now challenged and has been changing. So this point will be explained in the fourth part, especially focusing on ownership structure. Ownership structure might be slightly difficult for your background, but I try to explain in detail. And then fifth point is, in theory, how corporate governance issue affects in growth or economic performance. And I'll try to explain a bit in theory. And you have some knowledge about the economic theory, macro term or the thing, so that I try to connect your knowledge to corporate governance using very, very basic formula of the economic activity. And lastly, given the time constraint, I will try to explain the concrete corporate governance reforms in Japan using outside director issues as an example. But this part is fully depends on how much time I will be able to explain. Okay, so let's go to the substantial part. First part is the background for Abenomics. And I think you know the word lost decades. Lost decades is the, recently this is not true. So lost 2 decades, it should be plural. So at first the word lost decade was used around 2002 or 2003. So 1990s, it should be much clearer. It's 1990, and it's a growth rate of GDP, and Japan is a blue line, and Korea is this red line, and the United States is blue. And before 1990s, Japanese economy enjoyed the economic boom, which is called sometimes exposed bubble. But this before 1990s, Japan had the economic boom. But after that, Japanese bubble collapse, Japanese economic growth declined and almost zero in 1993. And we had a very big economic shock in 1997. And this time, from 1993 to the late of 1990s, almost economic growth rate is near zero level. So that firstly, we said lost decade in early 2000. And this is a time when the non-performing loan program of banking sector became very serious, and look back to Japanese economy, we do not have any economic growth for the past 1 decade. Then we use the word lost decade in the early 2000s. So that's the first case that Japanese people use the lost decade, expressing that we haven't had any economic growth. And look at this time, Korean economy showed high growth and rapid recovery of the Asian financial crisis. And United States is always outperformed to the Japanese economy. But the nominal GDP of the Japanese economy compared to 1993 and 2002 is almost at level. So that people said it's a lost decade. And then 2002, non-performing loan was solved, and you may know the name Koizumi. I think you are young, so that I don't think you know this former president name, but the Koizumi presidency took 5 years, and he did very well at the backdrop of the favorable external circumstances. And from 2003 and to 2007, Japanese economic growth is not so high, but at 2% level. Then now the word lost decade was tentatively gone. And people understand that now the Japanese economy is into a normal situation. But 2008, we had a Lehman crisis. And the next year, it's a big economic slump all over the world. Then after that, the growth rate of the Japanese economy, blue line, is almost nearly 0%, and underperformed to other countries. So that around 2010 or 2010 or 2011, again the people use the word lost decade, and now the word became a plural rather than singular. So is the situation of the Abenomics was newly introduced at the end of 2012. So before 2012, the basic economic policy of the Japanese economy is, on the one hand, the Japanese economy has a huge budgetary deficit, government deficit. And on the other hand, Japanese economy is stagnant. But since we have a huge budgetary deficit, so that we cannot use government expenditure or build up the economy. So in order to make the governmental financial situation or budgetary situation much healthier, government try to decrease government deficit as much as possible. But it wasn't going well, and deflationary pressure became quite serious in 2011 or 2012. And as you know, the 2011 we had a great East Japan earthquake. And after that, the economy of the Japanese, the economic situation of Japan seemingly quite stagnant. And given this situation, former cabinet and the former ruling party less popular, and then LDP, Liberal Democratic Party, got to win the end of 2012, and Abe got Prime Minister in Japan. So that's the situation behind we have Abe cabinet. And this is the inflation rate of Japanese economy, and Japanese economy is the blue line, and the Korea is this red, and the US inflation rate is this light blue line. And 0% is here, so that in this timing and in this timing, the inflation rate is lower than 0. So it's a really deflationary. And right after bubble collapse, the inflation rate has been declining, but still the positive, so that we are not talking about the deflation in this phase. So really, Japanese people discussed about the deflation in the end of 1990s and early 2000s. So it's really a deflationary situation, and the deflationary spiral is seriously considered among Japanese politicians. But due to some favorable external circumstances, such as the booming of the world economy led by Chinese economy, the Japanese inflation rate is not seriously damaged and recovered to a positive level in this period. And then Lehman crisis happened, and inflation rate is again went down below 0 and continued to below 0 around 2011 or 2012. So that Japanese government is considering that this deflationary rate is really a serious impact to Japanese economy, and also the budgetary deficit program is very hard to solve given this deflationary situation, because the deflation means the income level nominally went down. But tax burden or the budgetary deficit is nominally fixed, so that it will take a long time to cover up to this deficit. So there are a lot of necessity to change inflation or macroeconomic situation in Japan, but former party haven't do anything. And then Abe took a cabinet and taking a new economic policy, which is called Abenomics. And Abenomics is a policy mix composed of three things. First thing is the monetary easing and targeting inflation rate 2% nominal. So before Abenomics, it's negative. So this inflation rate should be changed. And in order to change inflation rate, what they have to, or they try to do is budgetary policy cannot actively used, so that monetary policy is important. But at this time, given the deflationary situation, nominal interest rate is already zero. So that there is no room to be declined because minus interest rate doesn't make any sense. So that what they did is a monetary easing, which means Bank of Japan flexibly going to buy the bond from private sectors. And if the Bank of Japan buy the government bond from private sector, instead of the government bond, which used to be held by a private sector, the money is supplied to private sector. And this money will be used for investment or other economic activities. That's the expectation, or that's the direction that Abe and the Bank of Japan took. So Abenomics, the core or essence of the policy is the monetary policy, and not using the interest rate, but using some purchase of Bank of Japan to private holding government bond. So this is the main measure, and targeting 2% or committing 2% inflation rate whenever this target is realized. Government committed to, or Bank of Japan committed to continue monetary easing policy. Then try to change the people's expectation to have 2% inflation rate. So that's the one new experiment for monetary policy, which used to be using an interest rate, but now it's impossible to use an interest rate. So that depending on the people's expectation, government and Bank of Japan committed to a 2% inflation rate through the buying or purchasing government bonds from the private sector. That's the essence of the financial policy taken by Abe cabinet. And this is the target for 2% inflation rate. And Bank of Japan committed to this monetary easing policy. Then it's immediately affect on exchange rate of the Japanese yen to US dollar or other currencies. And at that time, yen dollar exchange rate is $1 to 80 yen, but it immediately went down to $1 to 100 yen. So that's a direct result of the this monetary easing policy. And also the inflation rate was expected to 2%, and exchange rate decreased almost over 20%, and economic activity will be go up by Abenomics. Then capital market responded very much to this Abenomics, and after that the stock price Nikkei will go up very immediately. So that first arrow of Abenomics is the monetary easing policy, which is the unusual measure compared to a traditional financial way, but which was quite effective and resulting in depreciating of the yen and raising stock price. And the second arrow of the Abenomics is a flexible fiscal policy. And this is, actually, this is a very naive position or nuanced position. In the sense that, on the one hand, Japanese government is required to recover their budgetary healthiness, so that too much government expenditure is not so good way for reconstructing their budgetary balance. But on the other hand, in order to pent up to a Japanese economy, government expenditure is necessary. So that given this constraint, government try to find the optimal level of expenditure. And they, what they did seems to be very active and successful for changing the economic situation better than before. So that's the second arrow of the economy. So first arrow is the monetary easing, second arrow is the fiscal policy. And the third arrow is the growth strategy. Growth strategy is a microeconomic policy, a nexus of microeconomic policy, and which affect on private companies' activities and making the growth level much higher, including to trade agreement or corporate governance reform and other things. And let me enter a bit more detail. So the effect of monetary easing is, as I said, inflation target plus new phase of monetary easing. It was released in November 2012. And then immediately yen exchange rate is weakened, and from 80 yen to 100 yen. And the governor of the Bank of Japan changed next year, and which is a good news for people to understand that the Bank of Japan commits to a monetary easing policy in the long run. Then the situation has been gradually improving, and export industry is at first their profitability is improved very much, such as Toyota or Nissan or other automobile industry have a lot of profit after weakening yen. And the other direct result of Abenomics is a rise of stock price, and you know the index of the Japanese stock market is called the Nikkei, and the Nikkei composed the Tokyo Stock Exchange first section stock. It's an index, and 1,700 stock was composed of this Nikkei, and I'm sorry, Nikkei is around 500. And another index is Topics. Topics is all the stock of the Tokyo Stock Exchange in the first section. And Nikkei is the around 500 selected funds in the first section of the Tokyo Stock Exchange. But anyway, it's SP 500 or FT 100, these kind of index of the Tokyo Stock Exchange. And this was the, before Abenomics is around 19 yen is not a good unit. It's a no unit. It's 9,000 points. And this was increased 16,000, right, not right after, but taking a half year. So that it's a big tool or big increase of the capital market. And recently, the Nikkei averaged over 19, so that the stock price is almost doubles since Abe cabinet took up place. And this increasing stock price or level of stock price may have a lot of positive effects. And someone is slightly sleepy, but imagine what is the good news for company or private sector if the economy experience this kind of rapid stock price increase. Do you have any idea? So if the stock price is increased, then why this is a good news for private sector? You have no idea. So there will be 2 points to be already discussed. One point is people say wealth effect. Wealth effect is suppose that she is rich and she has, say, 1 million yen to Nikkei index. Then at the beginning, Nikkei is 9,000, but now it's 60,000. So that her 1 million yen is now become 1.7 million yen. So you become much richer, she became much richer, and the part of the money will be spent for buying, say, luxury goods, what would you like to buy, I don't know. But anyway, consumption will be encouraged by increasing the stock price. It is called the wealth effect. And another effect is the stock price increase always associated with decreasing capital cost of the private sector. So that if the stock price is increased, then through some path, companies easily to invest much more in theory. So that reality is not so simple, but in theory, increasing the stock price associated with increasing consumption as well as the increasing investment. And this effect is not so clear. And this effect is limited to just for rich people like her, and if the people do not have any stock, then they are completely free from this effect. And even the stock prices go up and capital cost will go down. However, if the private sector do not have any business chance for investment, then this low capital cost cannot be realized. So that the story is not so simple. But in theory, these increasing stock may have a positive effect to a Japanese economy. Then the direct effect is decreasing yen and high profitable export related industry and rising stock price. And these are the stock price and Japanese yen and dollar situation. And second arrow is the fiscal policy, and this story is not so much interesting for you. It's a slightly detailed story, and not a 15 months budgetary plan, but a 15 months. So this kind of thing is written, and actually fiscal policy is active for changing the economic situation very substantially. So it's slightly ironic because the Japanese economy is facing a budgetary deficit situation, which implies that we do not have any option to use a budgetary policy. But Abenomics emphasizing in monetary easing policy and other policy mix, but they also use fiscal policy as a tentative way. And this tentative way of the fiscal policy seems to be quite effective for recovering Japanese economy. So this should not be a core of Abenomics, but in reality, this has some positive effect of the recovery of the economy. Okay, and the third arrow is the growth strategy, and the growth strategy included a lot of plans. One of them is the TPP and its agricultural liberalization opening to the international community and tariff reduction. And a lot of deregulation plan was introduced, such as a national strategic special zone, which means that Japan has a lot of regulation so that the area should be designated to be completely free from this regulation. And corporate tax in Japan is higher than other countries, so that we are try to reduce corporate tax in order to encourage investment. And fourth is raising employee wage. Under the deflationary situation, the real wage level of Japanese worker has been declining, so that in order to raise the consumption level of Japanese economy, raising the employees' wage is necessary. So that's why this agenda is written as a third arrow of Abenomics. But you can imagine this is not the area of the direct area of the policy. So a government cannot intervene into the wage policy of the farm itself, so that the cabinet encourage private company or association of the private company to raise employees' wages. Otherwise, the recovery of Japanese economy will not be realized. And the last one is a corporate governance reform, which I will explain a bit more in the latter part of my presentation. Okay. And this is the action plan of the growth strategy, and I think it's slightly boring, so that let's skip to the next one. And let me sum up current situation of Abenomics. Inflation rate is now the positive, and it's beyond 1%, but it's less than 2%. And as you know, I forgot to say so, last April we raised our consumer tax, sales tax, consumer tax, which is consumer tax. It's a value-added tax. So that in the European continent, or sales tax in US economy. And it used to be Japanese VAT or consumer tax is 5%. And this was raised from 5% to 8% to last April. And this increase in consumer tax may have a negative effect on consumption level to the Japanese economy, but in terms of the inflation, this consumption tax increase automatically raise the consumption level, or the inflation level. So normally, in order to check the inflation rate purely, this influence of the consumption tax has been eliminated or excluded. And using this figure, or using this index, the inflation rate of Japanese economy after last April, when the consumption tax was introduced, is the around 1%. And one of the reasons of this low interest rate is the lower inflation rate is the decreasing price of the crude oil. So recently, the oil price has been declining very dramatically, and this affects on the Japanese price as a whole. And especially after a big earthquake, Japan stopped to use atomic energy for generating electricity. And Japan completely recently depending on crude oil for producing electricity. So that Japan had a high dependence on crude oil, but the price of crude oil has been declining. it has very positive effect Japanese economy as a whole, but look at this inflation level itself, it's a negative factor for inflation rate. So Japanese government or Bank of Japan emphasized that the unachievement of 2% of inflation rate right now is mainly the result of the low level or declining the crude oil or import price. This was not bad thing, so that let's keep 2% inflation rate, but we do not emphasize on achieving a 2% too much. So, but this is the situation of the inflation rate. And corporate profit is overall quite improved, and we would say that recent Japanese economy showing a very favorable situation compared to previous 4 years after Lehman crisis. And unemployment rate declined dramatically, and current situation in Japan is almost full employment situation, showing that the unemployment rate is at 3.6% or something like that. So now the unemployment problem in Japan is not serious situation. And wage and consumption level is expected to be raised, but situation is unclear. And some of the Japan specialists know Japanese wage determinant is the spring campaign between business leader and labor union, and it is called Shunto. It's a spring battle or spring campaign. And in this spring campaign, whether the wage will be increased substantially or not is a very critical point. And in order to Japanese economy much higher growth, so one poll of the opinion is increasing the wage is a necessary condition, and 1 or 2% of wage increase is expected. Unless this wage increase is not realized, the real consumption increase will not be realized. That's the situation. And right now, exchange rate is decreased again from 100 yen to 120 yen, which is good for export industry, but which is not good for normal people because the purchasing power of the Japanese yen has been declining. And if the Japanese yen becomes much weaker, then a lot of economic player has a lot of troubles. But so far, globally acceptable situation. And good thing for current situation compared to 2 or 3 years ago is the political stability is realized. So before Abe cabinet, former party is quite weak, and there are a lot of president change, almost every prime minister change almost every year. This unstable political situation is not so good for economic activity, but this situation is completely changed or recovered, and now in Japan is enjoying the relatively stable political situation. So these are the several figures, and entering into 2030, inflation rate showing over 1 positive and over 1%. And these are the returns in Japanese. So this shows the inflation rate and its unemployment rate. So unemployment rate in Japan is not so high, but it declined 4 to 2 point to 3.26%, taking 1.5 years after Abenomics was launched. Okay, so these are the story is the Abenomics. It's a broad overview, and by this point, do you have any question or clarify? Is it okay? Can I go ahead? Okay, then let me enter into much more micro-oriented issue. So I'm talking about Abenomics bit, and then based on this information, let me see micro situation or Japanese corporate system. So, as for Japanese corporate system, do you know the word main bank system or cross-shareholding? So these words may not be so familiar with you. But let me explain at first. So look back to 20 or 30 years ago. China was not emerged yet, and Japan became world. The Japanese world presence became very clear in the early 1980s. And this time, there is a book written by Ezra Borel, which is titled Japan as #1. And at that time, Toyota or Sony and other companies showed a very strong competitive edge in the world market. And this time, another Japan observer tried to figure out why Japanese economy grew so fast, and what is the mechanism or what is the secret of Japanese economic success. And of course, there are a bunch of explanations for this point. And one of the explanations is Japan has a unique system, economic system, which is different, or which is comparable to European or Anglo-American system. And this system is a micro foundation of a high growth of the Japanese economy. So this idea became quite popular among Japan observer or academics in the middle of the 1980s and early 1990s. And this time, the word Japanese type of management style or Japanese type of firm, which is different from or compared to Anglo-American type of firms. And characteristics of Japanese firms. By the way, this idea is the result of the early 1990s when the former socialist country was collapsed. So before 1990s, the economics is mainly addressed socialism versus or planned economy versus market economy. But after Soviet Union or other socialist country was collapsed, then the efficiency of market economy became much clearer, so that there was no point to be discussed for planned economy versus market economy. Then economists concerned moved to each country's characteristics. So it was called a competing model capitalism, or say variety of capitalism. So although basically all the market economy is a market economy, but the characteristic of a labor relation or the transactional relation or corporate system, corporate governance, corporate finance, those are different each other. This is the argument of a variety of capitalism or competing model of capitalism. And as a part of this competing model of capitalism or variety of capitalism, being different from Anglo-American type model, Japanese model is quite unique in following sense. And the Japanese model has the several characteristics. One model is the shareholder of Japanese firm is stable shareholder, and which is mainly composed of other corporations rather than individuals or institutional investors. So that the shareholder is not individual, but other corporation or other bank, and not family like your company. So in the emerging economy, family business or family ownership is very common, but in Japan, the ownership is either individual or other corporation. That's one characteristic. It has been changing, and I'll explain this point, but at the heyday of a J-type firm, stable shareholding is one characteristic. And the other characteristic is the corporate financing in Japanese firm is truly depends on bank, and it is called a main bank system. It's again ABC of economics, and the corporation has several kinds of corporate financing way. One way is the internal funds, and the other way is the equity issuance, and third way is debt. And that also composed of two ways. One is bond issuance, corporate bonds, and lastly, bank loan. And each economy has a different pattern of corporate financing. And in Japan, equity market in terms of the corporate finance is not so high level, and bank plays very significant role, and it's a core of the Japanese economic system for 2 or 3 decades. And this structure is related to Japanese other structure in internal governance structure, which is a board structure. And the board, again, you are not so familiar with the corporate board issue, but the company is run by corporate board, and company is run by, actually operational level is run by executive officers. And the executive officer is monitored by corporate board. And the corporate board representing to their interest of shareholder or other related persons. So the full composed board is quite important in terms of monitoring to executive officer. And this is normally called a corporate governance issue. So how corporation must govern, and shareholder and other stakeholder play some disciplinary role to executive officer, and who play significant role and which mechanism. These are the issues of corporate governance. And 20 or 30 years ago, Japanese firm is a quite managerial firm, and the executive officer was monitored by board, but the board is also the same person of the executive officer. So that the board member is not outside member. Board member is composed of people who promote it within firms. So it's quite tricky. So in the case of Japan, when you graduate university, Tamasato or Chulalongpong, and then entered into Hitachi or Toyota, then he worked for another 30 years competing each other. And the most talented candidate and the most showing high loyalty to a company, these people will be as a board member. So being a board member is a final goal of the Japanese firm. So this is quite a different setting in the States where board member is a representative of outside shareholder, and board monitored to executive officer team. But in the case of Japan, board is completely composed of a corporate insider, and this position is regarded as the goal of competition within firm among employees based on long-term employment. So that's the structure of a board in Japanese firm. So we can call board composed of corporate insider. This is the second characteristics of the Japanese firm in 20 or 30 years ago. And this board composed of insider also related to a Japanese employment system, which is called a lifetime employment system. And Japanese employment system or labor market is quite different from other developed countries' counterparts. So US or UK labor market is quite flexible, and it's quite common that employee moves from a company to other company. But in the case of Japan, as I explained, right after you graduate at university, you will pick up top business firm, then it is likely that you will continue to work a company and promoted within firm and to be executive officer of a firm if you are talented and show loyalty to a firm. So these are the lifetime employment, and these three characteristics is mutually interrelated. So both composed by insider is highly related to a lifetime employment system, and the lifetime employment system is highly related to this stabilized shareholder ownership structure as well as the main bank system, because this system assumes that company will continue to forever. Otherwise, lifetime employment system will collapse. And otherwise, as a whole of the board position will be collapsed. So that if the company faces some trouble, main bank is going to rescue to this company and avoid to completely bankrupt. Or the stable shareholder scheme is good scheme for keeping free from the top manager from the threat of the outside takeover pressure. So that due to this cross shareholding, the top manager of Japanese firm is completely free from the capital market pressure or the threat of takeover. Then this main bank system and cross shareholding is a device for maintaining the long-term employment system. So these are the relation of the Japanese management style, and it was quite common 20 or 30 years ago Japanese firm, and still in a certain extent common to Japanese firm. But this situation has been changing, entering into 1990s and 2000. And recent dramatic change is ownership structure change, and cross shareholding or staggered shareholder scheme between banks and farmers unwinding. And foreign institutional investors such as Goldman Sachs or Merrill Lynch or Fidelity, these kind of foreign institutional investors showed a very strong interest in Japanese economy and became substantial shareholder of the Japanese firm. And dominance of insider ownership, which means the corporation or firm shareholding, disappeared. And as a result, insider dominated structure of ownership structure is no more unique characteristic of a Japanese firm. So these kind of things recently happened, and I think this would be a clear explanation. So Again, this is Japanese, I'm sorry. And this blue line is, I'm sorry, is insider. This is the insider. And this red line is the outsider. And this green line is foreign shareholders. Okay? And this blue line is the aggregation of a share of some type of the shareholder, such as this is the insider, so that banks or insurance company or other corporation. So companies issue stock which is held by other companies, banks, and insurance company. These are aggregated and showing over 60%. And basic idea of insider-outsider story is the motivation of the player who have or who hold a company stock is not financial performance, but some kind of a private private interest or keeping a transactional relationship. So this kind of the concern is the main motivation of holding stock. We categorize these shareholders as the insider. And the representative of this insider is, in the financial literature perspective, founders shareholding. So family ownership or manager ownership is our first candidate, but in Japan, this shareholding is very rare. And the majority of these type of shareholder is a bank, insurance company, and the corporation. And this share is over 60% for the 3 decades from 1970 to middle of 1990s. So this structure is quite looks stable during 70s and 80s, and looks like continue to forever. And on the other hand, this red line, the definition of the outsider is the motivation of holding stock is maximizing the financial performance represented by income gain, which is a dividend payout, and capital gain, which is an increase in stock price. So why the people hold stock is mainly try to earn the money, which means the maximizing the profit. And the profit or the earning for buying or for keeping a stock composed of a capital gain as well as an income gain. Capital gain is the increase in the stock price, and income gain is the dividend payout. And the essence of this graph is the early 1950s to the 1970s. This blue line shows upward trend, so it's an era of emerging the insider-dominated structure or the emergence of cross-shareholding. And it continued to 30 years, but it declined very recently. And on the other hand, by 70s, outside shareholder has been declining, and it shows less than 40%, but recently it went up very dramatically. So recently, ownership structure of Japanese firm changed quite dramatically in terms of ownership. Now the majority of Japanese firm is not insider, but outsider. And outsider is mainly composed of this green line, and the green line is the share held by foreigners. And the foreigner mainly composed of institutional investors such as Goldman Sachs or Abenomics. Of course, other foreigner is the company such as Abenomics or IBM or these type of firm directly invested in a Japanese firm. Then this was counted for this green line, but this share is quite small. So a main part of this green line is a foreign institution. So now the ownership structure changed quite dramatically recently, and what is the result of the Japanese economy, and how can we manage this kind of situation with the corporate governance issue in Japanese economy. Right. So that's the situation. So here the point is, Japanese economy used to characterize as main bank system or cross-shareholding or insider-dominated structure, and it associated with the insider-dominated board structure, and it's complementary to a long-term employment system. But recently, the ownership structure has been dramatically changed, mainly caused by increasing share of foreign institutional investors, as well as the unwinding cross-shareholding between banks and corporations. And while the cross-shareholding between main bank or bank and corporation was unwinded, the banking sector faced financial distress. So, because the banking sector faced financial distress, from the viewpoint of the corporation, keeping holding to the bank sector is quite risky. So that the company began to sell their holding stock. Otherwise, some of the banks seem to be bankrupt. And from the viewpoint of the banking sector, they have a lot of difficulty for writing off their non-performing loan. So that in order to write off their non-performing loan, they have to sell their holding stock. So that from both sides, cross-shareholding unwinding. And this sold stock in the market was bought by foreign institutional investors. As a result, this change, this ownership change showed in the previous video occurred in Japanese economy. Then recent situation is the ownership structure completely changed, and on the other hand, the cabinet is considering that strengthening corporate governance in Japanese firms may have a positive effect on economic growth. This is the point which right now here. Then now the look back to a bit economic theory and what is the situation. And I am not sure this explanation is helpful for your understanding or not. But suppose that you know the production function. How many people have the name of the production function? No? Of course, you must know. But as for students, I better to explain a bit in detail of production. It's a quite simple idea. So production function is the wealth of the nation. So actually determined or defined by value added. And value added or production of the economy is determined by three factors. One factor is the capital stock of the economy, which is intuitively a facility of the factory. So how much machine do you have, or how much automobiles do you have? So this capital stock is important. And the second important thing is the labor input. It's also quite clear, right? So the wealth level of the economy is determined by labor input. And the third factor is called total factor productivity, which is the rest of things which cannot be explained by capital stock and labor input. If the technological innovation was newly introduced in the economy, then we can expect increasing CFP. And corporate governance issue is composed or located in some part of this TFP. So that after controlling fundamental factors, such as the capital stock or labor input, still there are some room to influence on the production level. And a part of this would be a corporate governance issue. And put it more intuitive way is, suppose that there is a two restaurants. Which street is the main street in Thailand? I'm not sure. If you come to Japan, there is a street which is called Ginza Street, and it's a very, very famous street and very popular street. And suppose that there is a two restaurants in the Ginza Street, so it's the same location. And suppose that this restaurant has same number of fry pan, it's a proxy of the capital stock, and the same number of chef, so it's a labor input. Then the location is the same, and say the Italian restaurant or Thai restaurant. Thai restaurant, same thing cooking, and same number of fry pan and same number of chef. Then according to this or economics, then the value added or output of this restaurant should be same. So same labor input and same capital stock and the same location. But the reality is different. If the chef is owner chef or hired chef, then sales volume might be different. Or if the chef is hired, but the compensation scheme to chef may influence on the sales of these two Thai restaurants. So that's the point of the corporate governance issue that we play some significant. So introducing appropriate compensation system or introducing some kind of the commitment device such as ownership or so on, then production level may change, even keeping or having the same fundamental factors such as capital stock or labor input. So that as a growth strategy, why corporate governance is important is, although the basic production level could be determined by fundamental factors, however, there are some rules that efficient corporate governance arrangement enhance the production level or value added of the firm or the economy. So that's a basic idea which supports to corporate governance reform to economic growth. Okay? So this is another aspect, and this is again very primitive or ABC of economics. It's the investment function. And the investment function is basically determined by, it is called Q, and Q is, do not consider seriously. It's a proxy of the business chance. And normally economic theory says that if the business chance is given to a fund, then optimal investment level could be determined. However, real world is investment is determined by or influenced by several factors such as a cash flow or default risk. And this is a key. And corporate governance arrangement may affect on this cash flow and default risk or leverage level. Let me explain a bit. So suppose that the investment level is determined by business chance, but a company has a lot of money in within funds, and the other company did not have any money within funds. Then there will be a difference within two funds, even facing same business chance. And sometimes one company is over-invest using the internal money. Or the other company is using this money or keeping this money not using investment, but keeping within funds in order to prepare something happen in the future. So that the relation between cash flow and the investment is normally positive, but positive relationship is not so good or normally good in economic theory. And other relation is normally investment should be determined by a business chance, but it should be influenced by leverage. And if the leverage level is high at the beginning, then top manager of firm consider that if we invest much more raising external funds such as the bank borrowing or bond issuance, it seems to be a bit risky because unexpected thing happened, our company will be bankrupt. In this case, top manager of firm is likely to stop this investment project, although this investment project has a positive, profitable future. So that's a program of the constraint of debt to investment. Here the program or the point is the investment behavior of the firm is influenced by corporate governance arrangement through the good of the internal money retaining or deciding a leverage. So if the company try to be risk-take, so company is try to lend the money from bank, even showing a high leverage. But the top manager of firm is quite conservative. In this case, this leveraged investment policy will not be taken. So that if company did not have any appropriate governance structure, then investment level will be decreased or increased proportionate to the cash flow or leverage level. So in this context, corporate governance also may affect on investment behavior. And especially in the case of Japan, investment level is low, so that without an appropriate governance structure, company is less likely to take a risky project. That's the point Abe is concerned about. So a Japanese firm is recently too much conservative and strengthening to corporate governance. This situation will be improved. So that's the second point. And third point for the relation between corporate governance and corporate growth or profitability or productivity of the economy is the corporate structure. And again, this might be quite easy or quite familiar formula for students who study the economics. It's a labor adjustment function. And labor level or the appropriate labor of employment level of a economy or a company is normally determined by the one drag of the labor employment, and it's related to the sales volume of the economy. So increasing sales or decreasing sales. So it's quite easy to understand that a company which is likely to increase the employment level is the increasing sales. And if the company's sales volume is declining, then this company is likely to reduce the employment level. So this was written in this formula, and this was related, or this was expressed in the coefficient of this delta y. And this is a labor adjustment function. And in general, this coefficient of y it's a speed of adjustment to sales volume or growth. And this coefficient is much higher in the United States, or much general market-based system, and lower in Japan, or relation-based system. So that our system is not so flexibly arranged to the change of the sales volume. So that's the labor adjustment function. And using labor adjustment function, corporate governance may affect on the adjustment of labor or the adjustment of asset to changing a sales volume. And here the point is corporate governance affect on the decision of corporate restructure. So if the company concerned about the interest of employee, even company face stagnated situation in the sense that sales volume will not increase or sometimes decrease. And profitability is very low or sometimes negative. In this case, good solution based on the market economy is shut down this facility and lay off these employees. But it was not the case in Japanese firm. So Japanese firm continued to keep these employees. And how much extent or which speed this adjustment will be done in firm is highly related to coefficient delta y, and this delta y is mainly influenced by a corporate governance arrangement. So if the shareholder of the a firm, say Japanese firm, dominated by insiders and main bank and other firms, then labor adjustment must be low. However, if the shareholder are replaced by foreign institutional investor, they had a strong pressure, so that the company has to change the employment system compared to previous period, and adjustment speed would be much higher. So these are the third group or third class of affecting of a corporate governance arrangement to a corporate growth or corporate profitability. So that I think you have some notion that this restructuring idea, from the viewpoint of the employee, this adjustment, slow adjustment is a good thing because employment position is guaranteed. But from the viewpoint of the shareholders, low adjustment speed is a bad thing because the non-profitable facility is still there. So this contradiction of interest is reflected in this formula if we look at the corporate governance value. Okay, so that's the background of the relation between corporate governance issues and corporate governance. So corporate governance arrangement compose various things. But the rest of 15 minutes, I'll show you some cases which is right now critical in Japanese economy. So outside directories is as an example, and explain slightly detail about it. So recent governance reform as a part of Abenomics is as follows. Early 2000, there was some argument, and some of the Japan specialists may remember, also future Japanese system should be toward to Anglo-American type of system. That's one pole of opinion. And the other pole of opinion is, no, Japanese system is unique and have a lot of good things, so I try to keep Japanese management. That's the other pole of argument. So the argument convergence to the Anglo-American model or keeping difference or divergence with other countries or among countries. So these controversy was quite popular early 2000. And lastly to say, first type of argument is supported by financial people or financial academics. They like market economy. And second idea, so let's keep a Japanese management. This idea is supported by business people or management people in academics. And my understanding is both ideas in Japanese context it's a bit one-sided. And what happened in Japanese fund and what happened in Japanese fund and what should be taught in Japanese fund is not either American type or not nor the keeping a Japanese management. My idea is a kind of the hybrid of the market-based system with Japanese type of management. And this first happened or not is a matter of the argument, but my basic standpoint is this hybrid. But anyway, almost 10 years or even recently, there is some argument between Anglo-Saxon type is a model or not, or economy is converging Anglo-Saxon type, or keeping some characteristic of Japanese farm forever. And given this situation, Abenomics put corporate reform slightly toward to Anglo-American type of a system. So a market-based system should be strengthened. Or put it differently, using the word strengthen the corporate governance, which means the interest of shareholder value should be much emphasized. Otherwise, the growth of Japanese firm will not be realized. And in this direction, there are several measures taken under the chapter. First one is the corporate law amendment in 2014 and introducing outside director. And it's not completely mandatory rule, and it's a new rule about called the comply or explain. So that the best practice is having outside director, but if your company will not introduce outside director, it is allowed by law, but you have to explain the reason. So that's a comply and explain principle. So it's not completely mandatory rule, but it's partly mandatory. Or anyway, company has to explain the reason why not introduce outside director. And the stewardship code was also introduced in 2014 for encouraging dialogue between institutional investor and manager. And here the role of institutional investor is now increasing. But institutional investor has the benefit and cost to a corporate governance in Japan. Benefit would be they are the representative of market pressure, and they are giving us some pressure and idea to a company to improve their business. But on the other hand, the institutional investor is not committed to a company's long-term future. So that sometimes institutional investor selling their holding stock when the company stock is relatively high, and they are less committed, and their activity is not so responsible for the company's future. So in order to improve this situation, stewardship code was introduced, and it encouraged dialogue between investment and money. And third recent trial is the Japanese type of corporate governance code, which is modeled by a UK corporate governance code or OECD corporate governance code. It's a code which is the nexus of the some principle of the best practice, and it's also introduced or asked to introduce outside director, and this code is not just one but two, at least two outside director was required. So now the point is outside director is required two Japanese firms. And then I think you are slightly puzzled why this program is so important. And remember that the board structure of the Japanese firm is completely composed by corporate insiders. So Japanese firm, it is board, and in literally it is expected to monitor to executive officer, but in reality Japanese firm board was mainly composed of the people who promoted within firm, so that there is no monitor to the executive board. So a board member and the executive officer is actually a same person. So that the self-monitoring was quite common under Japanese firm. And from the viewpoint of the institutional investor, this situation is not acceptable. So interest, contradiction of interest of the shareholder and corporate employee or insider may happen, but the board of directors is represented by corporate insiders too much. So that the outsider should be take a seat and monitor to the executive officer. That's the idea of the introducing a corporate outsider into the Japanese firm. Okay? Yes.
Professor, I have a question about corporate law amendment in 2014. It's introduced to comply or explain for outside director. That means you do not have to have outside director in the company. But in June, the corporate governance code will require at least one outside director, so I'm quite confused about this.
I'm sorry. So corporate law is a law, and this is the corporate governance code. It is the basic rule of the listed rule of Tokyo Stock Exchange. So that it's a law, and this is a rule of Tokyo Stock Exchange. And so corporate law is the case for all the company which is defined as the law. But this is a code which is the case for all the listed firms in Tokyo Stock Exchange. The basic idea is same. And corporate law amendment or new corporate law requires at least one outside director, independent outside director. And corporate governance code, one is too small or too few, so that they require at least two, and possibly three outside directors should be produced. Okay? And this is the number for international comparison of the outside director. And so if you are interested, I sent to my PowerPoint to Professor and Nami-san, and then if you are interested to see, please get in touch with her and see, I think, deliver my PowerPoint. And I'm sorry, it's slightly too small. And Japan is here, and the blue is majority, and light blue is the independent outside director. And dark, the deep blue is the corporate insider. And it's a current situation, and around 2012, and in Korea, here is the result of Korea. It must exist in no. But anyway, all the countries now the outside director is a majority. And the inside director is, Japan is exceptionally high, outside director is exceptionally low. But other countries, Finland, Denmark, this Norway is also the outside director is a majority, so that Japan seems to be the only country which is dominated by a corporate insider as a board member. And this situation is the target or object of the criticism from the institutional investor. And other country, it is not written here, but Korea has the own law, and it was introduced after IMF intervention in 1997, and at least 3 outside directors has to be introduced in listed fund. So that now the company is likely to, or company is willingly to have an institutional investor. Having outside director is almost necessary condition. So current the situation what happens in Japan is the last topic. And here is the percentage of the company which introduced outside director year by year. And here the 2 points. 1 point is the current situation of the outside director in Japan is much lower than other countries in the international comparison. And in the US, 70% is the outside director share to co-director, and the Korea is 30%. However, second point is the from the 2006 to 2013, the company which have at least 1 outside director has voluntarily increased. So it's from 30 to 60%. So that under the pressure or under the situation, company voluntarily selected outside director gradually. But from the viewpoint of the government, or from the viewpoint of the financial people, still the outside director in Japanese fund is so there, so that the interest of shareholder was not, or seemingly not satisfied by corporate insider. So let's change this situation. And from the viewpoint of Abenomics, if the structure will be changed, so it attracts, or it's likely attracts for institutional investor to Japanese capital market, which seemingly increase the stock price much higher. That would be a very good news for Japanese economy. So this is the reasoning of the introducing corporate governance. Now it's 3:30, and I have several formula of estimating this board director. So it might be a slightly too detailed story, so that I skip this kind of the, estimation result. And okay, so if you're interested, I'll explain much detail in later. So lastly, I'll give you some perspective and then start. Perspective is Japanese fund is trying to find appropriate board structure, because I'm talking about the outside director is required, but introducing outside director to Japanese fund is not always good thing. So in a certain type of the funds, and this is explained this dialogue, and basically the theory says the outside director is not necessarily useful for all funds. So outside director is useful if the company has a complex structure. And if the company has a complex structure in terms of the business portfolio, or the activity in a geographical sense, or financially complex, these firms need some advice from outside. So that if the company is much complex, organizational and portfolio structure, then having outside director is efficiently good decision. And another direction is if the company faced a kind of a serious agency problem, such as having a rich cash within firm in spite of no business opportunity. And if this company is under the process of corporate reorganization, then there will be some contradiction of interest within the shareholders' value and employee value. And also, if the company introduces anti-takeover defense or anti-takeover measures, which is also a slightly technical poison pill or anything, then agency program is serious. So this company should introduce outside director in order to protect minority shareholder or shareholder value. But if the company structure is simple, and if the company is still young and no possibility to waste their money without investment project, so this company is not introduced outside director to corporate board. So what I'm saying is, suppose that if the company is mature and have a lot of money, and the company has a takeover defense measure, this company should introduce outside director. Otherwise, this company is controlled by insider, and in the long run, this company's performance or efficiency level will go down. But this is not completely the case for all the firms. If the company is early phase and IT-related firm, then outside director did not have any law, so that in this case, introducing outside director is not necessarily condition for corporate growth. So in this case, one size fits approach is not appropriate. So each firm has to find the appropriate board structure. And US monitoring board is not always good in the best. However, still some of the firm is protecting insider interest too much, so that in this point, Japanese firm had to change their board structure for improving governance as well as attracting foreign investors, so that it's a time for Japanese firm to reconsider their former board structure, which composed of corporate insider, to somehow introduce independent outside. So that's the main point which I would like to explain, and I should stop here and let's have a discussion.
Thank you very much, Professor Yachina. Now it's so we have just a bit of time here. It's time for Q&A. So this is open sessions here. Like Professor Miyachina lecture is definitely giving us a perspective way back to 1950 or 60, maybe before the time that many of us in the room were born yet. So it's really giving us a perspective of the structure of the Japanese economy, its ups and downs throughout the decades. So the role of corporate governance is really important to the economy. Just for now here, it's an open session for any questions or comments or yes.
Okay. I would like to have a short message to my students here. I know that you may feel like it's very difficult today to catch the lecture, but don't be worried. The second half of our course, yes, right. The second half of our course will be about the economy in macro level. You will learn many indicators, for example, GDP, inflation, deflation, and exchange in currency, something like that. So don't be worried, okay? Anyway, the thing that you've learned today is about the economic history of Japan, which has faces up and down situations. Okay. So next is my question. It's quite simple. Have you ever heard about the economic policy in Thailand now? You've never learned that Thailand is now governed by the arm-led government. And a few weeks ago, there is a policy about interest rate in Thailand. And it is said that the government tried to decrease the policy interest rate, which causes impact for both low interest rate and also deposit rate for the bank. What do you think about that? It's a good way for
government try to decrease interest rate. Right, but it's a government also, but the government do not have any direct measure for decreasing the interest rate. So interest rate is mainly determined by Bank of Thailand, and it's not the government, it's an independent organization. So that, of course, it's quite understandable that government has a hope to reduce interest rate for encouraging economic activity, but the problem is how to realize this low interest rate. And if the economy or demand for money is stronger, then the interest rate has to be go up. So without giving supply of the additional money to the market, it's impossible to decrease the interest rate. But in Japan, we are struggling from a very low interest rate, and almost interest rate is 0, and the government bond rate is around 0.4% for 10 years government bond. So this situation is the result of the economic mature situation. But Thailand is still emerging, so that there are a lot of money demand, which is likely to make the interest rate higher. So then there would be a very difficult situation that government try to, or realize to decrease the low interest rate. So, right. So, but first the point is what can be done is just by not the government, by Bank of Thailand for interest rate. So what Thai government does in terms of the interest rate is very indirect way.
I found an interesting part from your lecture is about the consumption tax. You said it increased, right? From 5% to 8%. What's the response from the people?
Of course, the expected before increasing the consumer tax, people try to, or even company try to buy people tax increase. It's a rush to buy before increasing tax. And after consumer tax increase, 1 quarter or 2 quarters, growth rate of the Japanese economy became negative because some of the demand was already used by before increasing consumption tax. And our plan is 2014 April from 5% to 8%. And 2015 this year, or this September or October, we are planning to increase 8 to 10%. But this was postponed. And so the first impact of increasing consumer tax was so strong and discouraged the economic growth. So that in order to observe this negative impact taking 1 year, and we decided by the end of 2017, we increased consumption tax from 8% to 10%. And of course, it may have a negative effect. And then there is some argument. Some people said that the negative impact is too much, so that we have to carefully consider the timing of the increasing tax, consumption tax. But the other people said that even 10% consumption tax rate in Japan is lower than other countries. So look at the European continent, consumption tax is 15% or 18%, or some countries 20%. And we are now entered into Asian society, and social security fee should be compensated or financed by this consumption. So that we have to increase consumption tax high speed and high level. But so that at least 10% is the minimum level, so that we do not have any choice without implementing increasing of consumption tax according to scheduled plan. So that's another goal of the opinion. And my feeling is the budgetary deficit program is so serious, and the age program is going so far, so that we have to raise our consumption tax as we plan. Otherwise, our economy faces a serious situation. Yeah.
I have 2 questions. The first one is about the cycle. Does ownership really matter? From your presentation, I try to assume that ownership and directorship is pretty much the same thing. But in traditional Japan firm, if you are the director, so you are the owner. But in the US model, even if you are a director, you may not own the company. You can be taken down. Considering the corporate governance that they're trying to push into the US model. That's the first question, yeah, that I want to be more clear on this ownership and directorship. And the second is about, when we're talking about governance, I can understand it's about transparency in terms of how board, executive board working, operate the company. But it's also about the performance, effectiveness, and part of it I can see in your paper that you mentioned about the kind of commitment or loyalty to the firms. Is that part of the governance too? I mean, in both U.S. model and the Japanese traditional. And I think lastly, it's very interesting in your presentation as well, because you show that they have less unemployment rate from the Abenomics. Am I understanding correctly? But if you are gearing towards this U.S. model of corporate governance, it means someone at the age of 50, in mid-life, they can be laid off because they don't have this kind of loyalty or anymore. And how is that going to relate to this unemployment rate?
Okay, so there are several issues. First issue is the corporate ownership and corporate board structure. And second one is the third one is the and third one is the employment or labor adjustment, or the governance and labor.
Yes, you mentioned about Asian society situation as well.
What is the second one?
The second one is about governance. We're talking about governance. It's transparent performance, effectiveness, and also about the loyalty to the firm of commitment.
Okay, so thank you so much for very insightful. And first one is the relation between ownership and directorship. And so I try to. So there is the relation between the. So of course, all the economic activities are interrelated each other. But my feeling is the ownership is important, and the ownership affect on corporate governance arrangement, including in directors. And ownership arrangement and corporate governance arrangement together with the corporate policies, such as investment or payout policy or financial decisions. And these corporate policy affect only finally corporate performance. So that's the basic idea of my framework. Of course, the technical to say there is some indigenous or reverse causality here which should be taken care of. But what you're saying is the ownership and directorship should be divided carefully in real analysis. So that's I agree completely. And second point is the governance. Governance, including other factors such as the transparency of funds or what else, the investment relations to a shareholder. So governance mechanism composed of several factors, such as these kind of the information disclosure, as well as I haven't touched upon today yet, but general shareholding meeting is also important. But, in this context, so in Thailand, the company ownership structure is basically family owned. So I heard that the listed firm in Bangkok or Thai stock market is around 600. And the 600 of the listed firm, and for the listed firm, there must be some possibility of agency program. So there are minority shareholders and they invested in money to the firm. But the firm is held by family, and family has the effective controlling power, and everything will be decided by family or top manager who was appointed by family. Then there might be a potential contradiction between family interest and shareholders' interest. That's a structure seems to be a Thailand in the corporate world. But in the case of Japan, there's no family, and the company's ownership structure is completely dispersed. So that a company is likely to be controlled by corporate insiders, such as the employee or the top manager who was promoted within firm. And their decision making sometimes contradicted to shareholders' interest. For example, dividend payout policy is normally issued. Corporate insider would like to keep the money within funds for using their usage. But shareholder would like to get this money as a form of the payout or the stock repurchase. So this kind of issue is issue in Japan. So what is the most important program in corporate governance is different from the country. So in the case of Thailand, family owners might be the core of the program, and abuse of the power of the family to minority shareholder might be the most important. And in the case of Japan, insider ownership is a program, so that the power of minority shareholder is too weak. That will be difficult. And in the case of UK or US, the program would be different. And you have looked at the program of the Lehman crisis, and it shows that in US or UK, the top managers' compensation is too much related to a stock option or stock price, so that they are likely to take too much risk. As a result, this kind of trouble happens. So that in the case of US or UK, corporate governance is too strong, and as a result, some risk-taking That's a issue, and the corporate governance issue is related to the country's other characteristics, and it differs among countries. And some point is the corporate governance and employment. That's to the core of the Japanese structure. And so all the things, they have some cost and benefit. So for example, now the Japanese company is criticized. It's less likely to take a risk, or avoiding the risk too much. So why don't you take much risk? So that's criticism from the outside shareholder, or sometimes other challenge to a Japanese firm. But risk taking is always good for shareholder, but not necessarily good for corporate employees, because shareholder can diversify their risk for portfolio investment. But for employee, if the company is bankrupt, their human capital will be destroyed. So that risk taking is not necessarily a good thing for employees' perspective. And in the case of Japan, on the one hand, company is likely to keep their employee compared to the states, even if they face serious situation. And there are very famous enquete inquiry asking to all of the countries, if you face financial distress, which will you choose? You will choose cutting a dividend or cutting an employment. And in the US or UK fund, cutting employment first, and the dividend will be second. But in the case of Japan, cutting dividend first and employment should be the last. So that's a difference among two countries. And now the pressure of the cutting dividend first is getting stronger and stronger. But it is not clear that accepting all these requirements is a good thing for that thing. But on the other hand, completely rejecting this idea is also not appropriate current Japanese situation. So that corporate restructuring issue is very important issue in corporate governance. And relating to this question, you insightfully raised a question relation between this delay of corporate restructuring or low adjustment to labor employment and low unemployment rate. So in the short term, it is true. And in long term, but I would say Japanese economy, almost 20 or 30 years later, basic labor market situation is the scarce labor. So over demand and excess supply situation. So that even taking any governance form, it might influence on the short-term unemployment rate, but the long-term employment rate must be at a low level, even taking both types of governance. Thank you.
I have a basic question. Who are those outside directors? Do professors have any chances to become company director?
Right. So, the professor is one of the candidates, but very minor. And many candidate is the former president of the other company. And Japanese firm used to have the custom that president was resigned, then will become a chairman. And sometimes the chairman is a substantial power and pushing the current president or manipulate the current president. But these customs should be changed and asking them to taking outside director position to other firms and giving some advice as well as the appropriate monitoring to other firms. And the company needs some skills for the company that experience managing the firm. So that former president, other company president is one candidate. And the other is of course a lawyer and accountant is the appropriate. And the third candidate is a bank guy, so bank people, who had some knowledge or specialty for financial system. But since the main bank system was so strong in Japan, so that main bank people was, if the main bank people was appointed by a company as outside director, or an institutional investor may be skeptical for its independence. But it's a matter of the each cases. So anyway, company needs a financial skills. And banking sector is an area which supplies these kind of financial skills. So that bank people is not necessarily out of the, not eligible people to independent. But if a company select bank people as outside director, the company has to explain why he is approved. And so in the here I said that the company which introduced outside director already is around 70%. And the corporate code, Japan corporate code, corporate governance code required at least 2. So that roughly to say 2,000 new outside director is needed by this June. So that there is some labor market friction in the outside director market. But so there is some pessimistic view. So there is no human resources. But my view is let's use the former president to outside director. So by today, these are taking the chairmanship of their own company. But they move to other company and to be outside director. They have a lot of experience, and they will be a very appropriate person. And also the Japanese company have to accept the foreign executive as the outside director. So Japanese firm is already quite globalized, but the board member is not so diversified. So that there is a lot of necessity to introduce foreign people as the outside. That's my view. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Not at all.
simple for the structure of
Also, you are asking me the board, and you're asking me program board or the composition of the board. Programs on board in Japan is the benefit of board which compose the corporate insider is they share the interest with corporate employee so that they are quite friendly to long-term management of funds. And it's very hard to imagine that the top manager or board of director suddenly reconstruct or restructure their business, even they face financial difficulties. But on the other hand, the cost of this structure is this board cannot reduce their employment level if company face the business or the economic or low economic opportunities, and also they need some advice from outside company, so that if a company is B2C businesses which needs some opinion from outside, inside the board needs or needs some advice from outside. So that so inside the board has a cost and benefit, but some of the company is likely to get a benefit if they introduce outside director, so that it could be true that introducing outside director may enhance the corporate value to certain type of fund. But again, I said that this is not true all the time. So suppose that the company is a B2B and the long-term relations with the company and company is needed, then the room of outside director is not so much. That's my opinion.
Okay, just one last
question. My pleasure.
My question relates to your presentation about Abenomics. We can see that the policy tries to promote the foreign, to attract foreign investors, but what about the Japanese investment to the other countries? Does the policy try to promote the Japanese investment in other countries, or the Japanese SME to other countries like ASEAN countries or not? If so, what is the goal of the policy?
Okay, so that's also the very interesting point. And so there is several aspects, and Abe cabinet is concerning about also in terms of the attracting the investment for the foreign institutional investor or foreign investor try to be attractive to the Japanese market. And that's a good news for stock price. So Nikkei will go up if the foreign investor invest in the Japanese market. And also the Abenomics or the cabinet is concerning about the domestic institutional investor. And the domestic institutional investor is financially backed by a pension fund. And the volume of pension fund has been increasing because the Japanese economy entered into a society. And how to maximize the pension fund value is very important. And recent decision is the asset allocation of the pension fund has to be changed. And the former low level of the domestic equities share was revised, and from 12% or 50% to now the 30%. So that the money could be channelized to domestic equity market through the route of the domestic pension fund, which is called a GPIF. And another question which you raised is the how is the policy to foreign direct investment or the trade policy. And basically, Abe is quite positive to the economic cooperation with South East Asian country, and TPP try to be introduced in Japanese economy. The only his concern is the TPP is fully criticize the people who has an interest in the agriculture sector. And the agriculture sector is the base of the LDC party. So that pushing TPP very straightforward has some negative impact on the, his political base. So that he is very careful to push this kind of policy. But in essence and in his heart, taking this free trade policy is main concern. And he tried to go this direction. Okay.
So I think I'm probably have to close the floor for now. Thank you very much, Professor Miyashima. As a token of our appreciation, here's some small souvenir from our school.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
Photo session. มีโฟโต้โลก
สีรุ้งมีด้วยแขนครับนี่แท็กเลยเหี้ยบอกเป็นเริ่มเซเว่นดิบสองคนหน่อยฉันไม่ถามทำไมไอ้หัวโคโค่
ไม่ได้ให้หมดนะกลับมาทีหมดพอหนัก
แต่ไว้โคตรหน้าไม่กันไหนจะได้ยินจำได้สิเฮ้ยเราWhat's up? ฉันมาทำอะไรแซ่รู้อ่ะ
We are the same.
Oh, thank you. She was my presentation fit to your concern.
เอาไปต้องคุยหรอ
So you read my paper.
Oh, yes.
So
So let me introduce one of my colleagues as well.
Oh, right. So are you reading, kindly reading my paper?
It's very interesting indeed. Actually, I'm very freely able to ask more questions. Almost to time constraints, unfortunately. But if you don't mind, it's the second point is about that one size truly fits all. So the corporate, I mean, you try to scale, because you already explained that some corporate is small or not very significant to in the stock exchange market, so they don't have to follow the models. But you also mean some types of corporates as well. For example, energy or something related with the security or food or
Yeah, so this paper we are divided into the company side, market side, as well as so it's overseas,
I'll run upstairs and grab my stuff a little bit. I'll meet you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I have another question about trade association. Japan used to have a very strong trade association, but with foreign ownership, does it impact on the strength of the trade association? Is working with the bureaucracy.
Yeah. So trade association means the say automobiles trade association or industry. So Japan, so it's a federation of the Japan Federation of so these are the so cross industry organization. But when you set a trade association, you are focusing on a association in a industry.
Yeah, in particular industry.
Then right, and then it's fully related to cartel for some area. My feeling is companies' activity diversified all over the world. And the trade association is important if the economic activity is limited within Japanese market. But now the company diversifies their businesses as well as diversifies their geographical location. So that the role of trade association, which is the mainly the case for domestic market, is not so important. That's my feeling. I'm not sure. Yeah, but there is some necessity and some room for trade association to do some information sharing or information exchange. Or there is some cases that Fair Trade Commission criticized or picked up some trade association to do unfair activity. But this might be also major programs for Japanese economy. It's quite different from the high growth era or early 1980s. So now the Japanese farm is, so if we look at the profitability of Japanese farm, and before 1980s, main business is, investment is a domestic, and businesses are limited to main businesses, and main activity is either selling those goods within Japan or export. But recently what happened in Japan is the company tried to be deconcentrated their organization, so that consolidated and unconsolidated accounting, and consolidated accounting and unconsolidated accounting, so including group one and just main business itself, and including group and denominator is a main business. It used to be this ratio is 1.3 or 1.4, but recently it's around twice the time. So that the company has a lot of subsidiaries and it plays a different business area. So that company is now the cross businesses and cross border. So that the toward association, which is in the same industry and same country, is losing their economic growth.
I see. And for your institutions, is it focused more on science, or social science, or both?
So this institute is basically all the area, natural science, humanity, and social science. So we are right now we are trying to do some project which is led by myself in the social science area. But basically, our mission is giving opportunity to young researchers to study hard and encourage them to publish in first